I watched her, the most powerful woman in Pinecrest Manor, HOA, slip something shimmering into my champagne right under the crystal chandeliers of the community clubhouse. She was my mother-in-law, Margaret Vale, the iron-fisted president of the board that ruled our gated paradise with an iron fist wrapped in pastel welcome baskets. She smiled like she was handing me the keys to the kingdom. I switched the glasses. She raised my flute to the microphone for her big toast. 15 minutes later, amid roaring applause from 300 neighbors, she started blurting out things the entire subdivision was never supposed to hear. My name is Nora Blake. From my seat at the head table of the Pinecrest Community Center Ballroom, our quiet little corner of suburban America looked like a postcard of perfection through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manicured lawns, identical beige houses, and zero tolerance for dandelion violations. Inside, the universe was contained and curated by HOA decree. 1,000 white candles burned without a flicker in the climate-controlled air, their buttery glow reflecting off the sterile white satin that draped every surface because, of course, Margaret had personally approved the fabric to maintain aesthetic harmony. The stage, where a string quartet had just butchered a soulless version of Pachelbel's canon, was shrouded in heavy silk banners printed with the Pinecrest Manor logo. It was all impossibly expensive, impeccably tasteful, and felt about as warm as a violation notice taped to your door. I was, or was supposed to be, the bride. At 32, I'm a risk compliance analyst for a national insurance firm, a fact that mattered far more tonight than my new marital status. My wedding dress was a minimalist column of ivory crepe, chosen for its clean lines and total lack of HOA forbidden frills. My hair was pulled back in a severe, glossy ponytail. Clipped just below the collarbone was a tiny professional-grade lapel microphone, a discreet black dot against the white fabric. It was for the HOA community live stream, Margaret's brilliant idea, so absentee owners could feel included. Every moment was being captured, recorded, and archived on the official Pinecrest app. I was acutely aware of the lens. Across the small expanse of white linen sat my new mother-in-law, Margaret Vale. She was the sun around which the Pinecrest solar system orbited. HOA president, self-appointed guardian of property values, and a titan in a neighborhood of terrified homeowners who dared not let their grass exceed 2 inches. Tonight she wore a deep emerald gown that complemented the large antique jade brooch pinned to her shoulder, her signature piece rumored to have been bought with miscellaneous landscaping funds. Her smile was a precisely calibrated instrument I'd come to know as her board meeting smile. It didn't reach her eyes. It was aimed at me now. That's when I saw it. The chatter of 300 residents hummed like a swarm of angry bees, but my focus narrowed to a single silent action. As a waiter refilled our champagne flutes for the toast, Margaret's hand, adorned with a diamond the size of a golf ball, drifted over to my side of the table. Her movement was fluid, practiced, masked by adjusting her place card. For a fraction of a second, her fingers hovered directly over the rim of my glass. I saw the faint, almost invisible cascade of fine crystalline powder fall from a tiny fold in her palm. It dissolved instantly, but not before the champagne gave a soft, unnatural fizz. The overhead chandeliers caught the shimmer like crushed diamonds in gold liquid. She drew her hand back, her board meeting smile never wavering. She leaned toward me, voice a confidential murmur that wouldn't reach the microphone. To a luminous future, darling. My heart turned to ice for 3 full seconds. I did nothing. I simply registered the action, filed it away like any other risk assessment. Then a prominent city councilman approached our table to congratulate her. As she turned, my hand moved. Small, economical. I swapped the glasses with the same grace she'd used. When she turned back, everything looked exactly as it should. The MC, a local real estate influencer whose fee could have paid for 3 new stop signs, returned to the podium. And now, friends, neighbors, let us raise our glasses for a very special toast from our esteemed HOA president, Madam Margaret Vale. Polite applause rippled. Margaret rose with the poise of a woman who'd find residence for unauthorized bird feeders. She picked up my glass, held it aloft, and tapped it with a manicured nail. "To family," she began, eyes locked on mine, "and to fidelity." Then she drained the entire flute in one power move. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. The live stream light blinked red. I raised her clean glass, let the rim touch my lips with a shot, but swallowed nothing. My new husband, Ethan, squeezed my hand under the table. "You okay? You look a million miles away." "Just taking it all in," I said, smiling the porcelain smile I perfected at neighborhood association meetings. Ethan Vale was the vice president of strategy at his family's development firm, a decent man who genuinely believed his mother only wanted what was best for everyone. He saw a protective matriarch. I saw a predator who'd turned our HOA into her personal ATM. Because 6 months ago, while auditing the expense reports for the new community pool renovation, I'd found the anomalies. Millions funneled to 3 ghost landscaping companies whose addresses were empty lots. Every transfer carried Margaret's digital signature, overriding the required 2 board member approval. She'd been using the Pinecrest Discretionary Beautification Fund to line her own pockets while finding the rest of us for dandelions. I documented everything in a 60-page report. Then the rumors started. I was aggressive, cutting corners, not a team player. A week before the wedding, she'd sent me an email titled "A Little Something from Your New Mom," with links to HOA ethics policies. A silk-wrapped threat. Last night, I'd log into the shared HOA drive. My report was gone. File not found. Owner changed. She'd erased the evidence and seized control of the file. Tonight wasn't about welcoming me. It was about destroying me before I could present my findings at the special audit committee vote next week. But I'd been watching. I'd saved every screenshot, every log. I'd sent an encrypted failsafe to the HOA General Counsel with a digital deadman's switch keyed to any mention of my name in a negative context on recorded channels. And when Margaret's personal assistant had intercepted the waiter earlier to ensure only our heirloom crystal flutes were used, the ones with the tiny Pinecrest logo etched on the base, I'd noted the controlled delivery system. Now Margaret stood at the podium, jade brooch gleaming like a malevolent eye. "To integrity," she declared, draining the last drop. The room applauded. Then her hand trembled. Her corporate, presidential smile faltered. She reached for water, but the words kept coming, softer, slurred. "Nora, to have you joining our family is a true honor." The pauses were too long. A low murmur spread. "She's just emotional," someone whispered. "Too much champagne," chuckled another. I saw the chemical reaction taking hold. I saw my risk assessment proving accurate. Margaret raised a hand to tuck a non-existent strand of hair. The motion brought her lapel microphone closer. And in that split second of disequilibrium, the thought slipped out, "Delete her report." The microphone caught every syllable. The sound system blasted it across the ballroom. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Absolute silence. Ethan turned to me, face pale. "Mom." Margaret blinked, then laughed a high, brittle laugh. "Silly me. Just a mix-up with the wedding party favors." But the damage was done. In the third row, Victor Hale, the HOA General Counsel, stared at his phone, then at me. He'd received my email. He'd seen the subject line, "Failsafe." I didn't argue. I simply placed my phone on the table, turned the screen toward Ethan, and pressed play. The 10-second clip from the HOA livestream camera showed Margaret's hand, the diamond ring, the shimmering powder cascading into my glass. It looped. Ethan watched his mother's elegant sabotage in high definition. His face went white. Margaret, still on stage, was visibly struggling. The drug stripped away her layers of polite HOA tyranny. Must not be on the audit committee," she slurred. "She'll ruin the pool project." Victor flinched. His smartwatch buzzed. The dead man's switch had fired. Every board member just received the full summary of my report highlighting the embezzlement, the ghost vendors, and Margaret's overrides. The board members rose in unison. 3 of them, a quorum. They fixed their gaze on Margaret like a firing squad in pastel cardigans. I leaned forward, voice calm through my own microphone. Madam President, would you like to elaborate on the part about deleting the report? The silence was deafening. Margaret gripped the podium. Oh, it was nothing, just party plans. I tapped my phone again. The video played on the big screen behind her, courtesy of the AV tech, who'd switched to emergency lighting the moment Victor nodded. Her own hand, her own crime, broadcast in 4K to every resident on the live stream. Ethan stood, voice cracking. Mom, what did you do? That single question from her son shattered the last of her composure. I did it for you, she screamed, fists slamming the table. The heirloom flute shattered. The jade brooch clattered to the floor. The microphone amplified every horrific detail. The thud, the explosion of crystal, the sound of an empire of fines and kickbacks breaking. I rose slowly. This is my wedding reception. But you made it your boardroom. So I'm responding in kind. Victor stepped to the podium. Under Pinecrest bylaws, Section 4, any public statement by a board member on a recorded channel constitutes an official record. We require an immediate vote on temporary suspension. Arthur Finch, the silver-haired patriarch who'd built half the subdivision, proposed the motion. Evelyn Reed seconded. 3 hands rose. The motion carried. Margaret Vale was suspended effective immediately. But I wasn't finished. I airdropped Victor the prenuptial agreement Ethan and I had signed months ago, my lawyer's masterpiece. Buried in Section 11 was the integrity clause. If any Vale family member willfully interfered with my professional or community standing through defamation or evidence tampering, all voting proxies and equity interests in the family trust properties would transfer to a blind trust managed by a neutral third party. Ethan would still receive dividends, but the power to steer the HOA would be taken out of Margaret's direct control. Victor read it, nodded, and announced it to the room. Margaret's face twisted into a grotesque grimace as the drug fully took hold. It was simple, she mumbled into the live mic. Just wanted Nora to seem unsuitable Azure Horizon landscaping Rico signed for everything paid him well. Every name, every shell company, every kickback dropped like stones into the pond. Reporters raised phones. The press had come for a golden alliance. They were getting the scandal of the decade. I gave the terrified waiter who delivered the flutes a small nod of thanks. He'd been used, but he'd also created the opening I needed. Victor called the final vote. 3 hands. Margaret was out. The officiant approached our table. Do you still wish to complete your vows? Ethan looked at me, eyes full of shattered illusions, but also new resolve. Only if you promise we stand on the side of what's right from now on. I promise, I whispered. We exchanged quiet, honest vows in the wreckage. The band played a single resonant chord. Then I walked to the podium one last time. Today, I said, voice carrying across the silent room, we cut the cake. We don't cut corners. I returned to Ethan. Together we sliced the 7-tiered cake. The knife hit the platter with a clean, final clang. The livestream camera zoomed in on my calm face. No glee, just resolution. Margaret was led away by her assistant, small and broken under the harsh lights. The double doors opened. Fresh afternoon light poured in like a new page. BMC cleared his throat. The cake has been cut. The bar is open. A gentle jazz standard began. A few couples drifted to the dance floor. I took a sip from a fresh, clean champagne flute. It tasted of nothing but itself, of a new beginning. Ethan squeezed my hand. We stood at the edge of an uncertain but honest future. The frame froze on the perfect slice of cake. The applause that followed wasn't polite HOA clapping. It was raw, relieved, the sound of 300 homeowners who'd finally seen the wizard behind the curtain of violation notices and special assessments. I felt Ethan's arm around my waist, steady now. No longer the blind son, but a partner who'd chosen truth over blood. We walked through the crowd as the jazz swelled. neighbors nodding with new respect instead of the usual wary smiles they reserved for anyone who dared question the board. One woman, whose fence had been cited 3 times last year for being too modern, actually mouthed thank you as we passed. Another man, the one whose American flag had been deemed non-compliant because the pole was 6 inches too tall, raised his glass in silent salute. Margaret's reign of terror had been built on fear and fines. Mine, if you could call it that, was built on proof and patience. I hadn't wanted to burn the neighborhood down. I'd simply refused to let her light the match. But the night wasn't over. Not yet. As we reached the dance floor, Victor Hale appeared at my elbow, tablet in hand, face still carved from the same granite he used in board meetings. "Nora," he said quietly, "the board needs you in the small conference room. 10 minutes. The failsafe triggered full distribution. Every director has the summary now, and the live stream archive is already being pulled for the official record." He glanced at Ethan. "Your mother is resting in the green room with Clara. The paramedics are on standby, but she's coherent enough to understand what's happening." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I'll be there in 5. Let me finish this dance with my wife first." Victor didn't argue. He simply melted back into the crowd like the professional fixer he was. The music shifted to something slower, and Ethan pulled me close. Under the soft lights, away from the podium glare, he looked younger, raw. "I didn't know," he whispered again, the same words he'd said when the video looped on my phone. "I swear I didn't." I rested my forehead against his. "I know you didn't. That's why I never made you choose until she forced it." We swayed in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that feels like breathing after holding your breath for months. Around us, residents who'd once avoided eye contact at the mailbox now smiled openly. The HOA app notifications were probably exploding. Screenshots of Margaret's slurred confession going viral within the private neighborhood group chat. "Delete her report" had already become a meme before the cake was even served. When the song ended, we walked hand in hand toward the conference room. The hallway outside the ballroom was lined with framed, approved color palette charts and violation appeal forms. Margaret's handiwork. I almost laughed. The woman who'd policed every blade of grass had just been exposed for skimming hundreds of thousands from the very fund meant to keep those lawns perfect. Irony. Thy name is HOA. Inside the small room, the remaining board members sat around a folding table that suddenly looked like a war room. Arthur Finch, Evelyn Reed, and Kenji Tanaka had their tablets open, my full report glowing on every screen. Victor stood at the head. "We've reviewed the evidence," he said without preamble. "The ghost vendors, the overrides, the Azure Horizon payments that went straight to a private account in Margaret's name. Combined with her on-record statements tonight, we have grounds for immediate removal and referral to the State Attorney General for embezzlement." He looked at me. "Nora, your failsafe saved us months of litigation. The digital hash proves the file was authentic before she deleted it. You're the reason this ends tonight instead of dragging on for years." Ethan sat beside me, back straight. "What happens to her?" His voice was steady, but I heard the crack underneath. Victor didn't sugarcoat. "She'll be escorted off the property once the paramedics clear her. Her access codes are revoked. The discretionary fund is frozen. And per your prenup's integrity clause, which I just verified with the trust attorney, the voting proxies transfer at midnight. She loses control of the family portfolio's HOA influence." Arthur Finch leaned forward. "Young lady, that clause is the cleanest checkmate I've seen in 30 years of development. You didn't just protect yourself. You protected every homeowner here from another decade of her nonsense." Evelyn Reed actually smiled. "A rare event. The pool project audit is yours if you want it. No more rumors. No more whispers. The board votes unanimously to appoint you interim compliance chair." I didn't gloat. I simply nodded. "I'll take it. But only if we publish a full transparency report to every resident by next week. No more secrets. No more special assessments disguised as beautification." Kenji Tanaka pushed his glasses up. "Done." and the live stream archive is being clipped for the official minutes. Margaret's confession about Rico and Azure Horizon is already time-stamped evidence. The room felt lighter already, like the air conditioning had finally been set to something other than Margaret's preferred Arctic tyranny. We stepped back into the ballroom 20 minutes later to find the party had pivoted hard. The string quartet had been replaced by a DJ who understood the assignment. Upbeat, but not celebratory enough to feel tone-deaf. Residents were dancing, laughing, actually enjoying themselves without glancing over their shoulders for a citation. The bar was 3 deep, and someone had started an impromptu toast to Nora, the only person who ever beat the HOA at its own game. Glasses clinked. I caught the eye of the young waiter who delivered the poisoned flutes. He was clearing tables now, hands no longer shaking. I gave him the same small nod I'd given earlier. He returned it with a grateful half-smile. He'd been a pawn, but tonight he'd become a witness, and the community would remember that. Margaret was gone. Clara had bundled her into a black SUV with tinted windows while the paramedics checked her vitals. The last image I caught was Margaret staring out the window, jade brooch missing, emerald gown rumpled, the powerful president reduced to a woman who'd finally run out of bylaws to hide behind. No dramatic exit speech. No final threat. Just the quiet humiliation of knowing every resident with the HOA app had watched her unravel in real time. The livestream numbers had spiked to 4,000 viewers, friends, family, even people from neighboring subdivisions who'd heard the rumors. Pinecrest Manor's dirty laundry was now trending locally, but for once it wasn't about someone's unapproved mailbox color. Ethan and I returned to the head table. The cake slice we'd cut earlier sat untouched on a plate, silver knife still resting beside it like a gavel. I picked up the clean champagne flute the new waiter had brought. Fresh bottle, no heirloom etching, no shimmer. The first sip tasted like freedom. Ethan watched me, then leaned in. You planned all of this? The video, the fail-safe, the prenup clause you walked down the aisle knowing she might try something. I set the glass down. I walked down the aisle knowing I was ready if she did. There's a difference. He exhaled, long and slow. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. All those times she just wanted what was best. I bought it because she's my mom. But tonight, she tried to drug my wife at our wedding. On a live stream. In front of everyone we know. His voice cracked on the last word. I took his hand. You didn't know because she hid it from you the same way she hid the books. That's not on you. What matters is what you do now. The DJ announced the first dance. We moved to the floor under softer lights. The harsh emergency glare finally switched off. As we swayed, I felt the weight lift, the months of silent observation, the late nights cross-referencing bank statements, the careful cultivation of allies on the board without ever tipping my hand. I played the perfect new bride, polite at potlucks, compliant with every ridiculous rule, even planting the exact shade of approved roses Margaret had demanded. All while building the trap she'd walked into herself. Halfway through the song, Victor appeared again, this time with a printed resolution fresh from the conference room printer. Signed by all present board members, he said, handing me a copy. Margaret Vale is removed as president. You are appointed interim chair of the audit committee with full access. The state AG has been notified, and the trust attorney confirms the voting proxies transfer at midnight. He offered Ethan a sympathetic look. Your mother will receive a formal letter tomorrow. She's banned from all community events pending investigation. Ethan nodded once, then pulled me closer as Victor walked away. We rebuild this place, he murmured. Together. No more kings and queens of the cul-de-sac. I smiled against his shoulder. No more. Just neighbors who follow the same rules, including the ones at the top. The song ended. Applause followed. Warmer this time, genuine. Residents who'd once crossed the street to avoid Margaret now lined up to congratulate us. One elderly couple who'd been fined $800 for an unauthorized wind chime actually hugged me. We've been praying for this day, the wife whispered. You have no idea how many of us kept quiet because we were scared. I did have an idea. That was why I'd never gone public until I had ironclad proof. Fear is the HOA's favorite enforcement tool. Tonight it backfired spectacularly. As the evening wore on, the mood shifted from shock to celebration. The press table, yes, the financial and lifestyle reporters who'd come for the wedding of the year, were now typing furiously on their laptops, phones propped up recording every new development. One journalist cornered me near the bar. MS. Blake, sorry, Mrs. Vale, how long have you known about the embezzlement? I kept my answer measured. Long enough to document it properly. Tonight was never about revenge. It was about protecting the community from further harm. He scribbled notes, eyes wide. And the prenup clause? That's genius. I shrugged. It's just risk management. Same as my day job. He laughed. Remind me never to cross you at a homeowners meeting. Ethan stayed by my side the entire time, fielding questions with quiet dignity. My mother made her choices, he told one reporter. I'm choosing to stand with my wife and the truth. No deflection. No excuses. I watched him grow into the man I'd always believed he could be once the shadow of Margaret's control lifted. Around 11, the DJ slowed the music again. Most guests had drifted toward the exits, but a small group remained, core residents who'd suffered the most under Margaret's regime. They gathered around our table like a council of the newly liberated. Arthur Finch raised a glass. To the woman who finally read the bylaws better than the president. Laughter rippled. Evelyn Reed added, and to the end of special assessments that mysteriously funded private vacations. More laughter. Kenji Tanaka simply said, the pool project starts fresh next month. Your audit report becomes the new baseline. I lifted my own glass. To Pinecrest Manor without fear. The toast was simple, but it landed like a gavel. Later, alone in the small bridal suite off the main hall, Ethan and I finally exhaled. The room smelled of fresh roses, approved variety, of course, and the faint scent of victory. He sat on the edge of the chaise, loosening his tie. You saved me from becoming her, he said quietly. I would have kept defending her out of loyalty until it destroyed everything. I sat beside him. You didn't need saving. You just needed the truth served without a side of guilt. He took my hand. The truth hurt tonight, but it also set us free. We didn't speak much after that. We simply held each other while the last notes of music drifted through the walls. Outside, the community center lights dimmed one by one. The live stream had ended hours ago, but the recordings would live forever. Evidence, warning, and cautionary tale all in one. By midnight, the transfer was official. Victor texted confirmation. Voting proxies now in blind trust. Margaret's access revoked. The board reconvenes Monday with you as interim chair. I showed Ethan the message. He read it once, then turned off his phone. New chapter, he said. No more family business mixed with neighborhood business. I smiled. Just us. And maybe a slightly less ridiculous fence policy. We stepped outside into the cool night air. The double doors of the clubhouse framed the moonlit lawns. Perfectly mowed, perfectly compliant, but now under new oversight. A breeze stirred the silk curtains one last time. The HOA app pinged on my phone, a new notification from the board. Interim Chair Nora Vale announces full financial transparency report forthcoming. All residents invited to the next meeting. No fines for attendance. I laughed softly. The first rule change, and it felt good. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of paperwork and quiet triumph. Monday morning, the boardroom, once Margaret's domain of mahogany and intimidation, felt different. Sunlight streamed through the windows instead of the usual fluorescent glare she'd insisted on to keep everyone alert. I sat at the head of the table now, not as a bride, but as interim chair, my report projected on the screen behind me. Every ghost vendor, every unauthorized transfer, every kickback laid bare in clean columns. The remaining members listened without interruption. When I finished, Arthur Finch spoke first. Motion to accept the report and forward to the AG. Seconded instantly. Passed unanimously. Outside the gates, word spread like wildfire through the subdivision. Neighbors who'd never spoken beyond nice weather started waving at each other. The group chat, once a minefield of complaints, filled with messages of gratitude. Finally, someone who actually reads the rules before enforcing them, wrote the wind chime lady. Pool fund, actually going to the pool, posted another. Even the teenagers who'd been ticketed for basketball hoops in driveways sent thumbs-up emojis. Margaret's house, at the end of the cul-de-sac, sat dark and silent. Her black SUV was gone. Clara had quietly resigned the same night. The jade brooch, I later learned, had been found in the green room and returned to the family trust, now managed neutrally. Ethan and I settled into our new normal. He moved his home office to the spare room so we could work side by side on the audit. No more late-night strategy sessions hidden from me. No more mom just wants what's best. Instead, we reviewed landscaping bids together, cross-checked invoices, and laughed when we discovered the premium rose fertilizer Margaret had ordered was actually delivered to her private greenhouse 3 blocks away. She fined me for dandelions while growing prize orchids on our dime, I said one evening, shaking my head. Ethan just sighed. She really thought she could keep it forever. The state investigation moved quickly once the livestream clips were entered as evidence. Rico, the driver for Azure Horizon, was located and flipped within a week, naming dates, amounts, even the Cayman account Margaret had used for retirement planning. The AG's office issued a statement. Significant embezzlement uncovered in Pinecrest Manor, HO. A local news ran the story with a headline, HOA President's Wedding Toast Turns Toxic, literally. The video of Margaret slurring "delete her report" went mildly viral in suburban forums. Memes popped up. Margaret's face photoshopped onto classic Karen templates with captions like, "When the bylaws bite back." Through it all, I stayed measured. No victory laps. No public gloating. When reporters called, I repeated the same line. This was never personal. It was about protecting every homeowner's investment and peace of mind. Ethan supported me quietly, attending every meeting, signing every document that transferred power away from his mother's influence. One night, he found me on the back patio, staring at the perfectly compliant rose bushes. "You okay?" he asked. I leaned into him. "I'm better than okay. I'm free. And so is everyone else." The final board meeting of the month was the true closing ceremony. I presented the new transparency policy, monthly financial reports posted online, all discretionary, spending requiring 2 signatures and resident vote for anything over $5,000. No more beautification slush funds. The motion passed. Then, in a quiet moment after adjournment, Victor slid a folder across the table. "Your permanent appointment as compliance chair, if you want it." The residents petitioned for it. I opened the folder. Inside was a simple certificate and a handwritten note from half the neighborhood. "Thank you for cutting the cake and the corruption." I signed without hesitation. Months later, the Pinecrest Manor pool opened on schedule, on budget, with actual community input. Kids splashed while parents lounged without fear of surprise assessments. The lawns were still perfect, but now the rules felt fair because they applied to everyone, including the former president's empty house, which had been quietly sold to a young family who planted the exact roses they wanted. Margaret never returned. The last anyone heard, she'd relocated to a condo in another state, far from any HOA with actual bylaws. Ethan and I stood on our front porch one evening watching the sunset paint the identical beige houses in warm gold. "Remember the night everything changed?" he asked. I smiled. "Hard to forget. Your mother tried to drug me. I switched the glasses, and the entire neighborhood got front row seats to justice." He laughed softly. "Best wedding gift ever." I turned to him. "The real gift was the promise you made that night. Standing on the side of right. You pulled me close. And I always will." Inside, on the mantel, sat the silver cake knife we'd used that night, polished, framed, a small plaque beneath it. "We cut the cake. We don't cut corners." A reminder, not a trophy. The community lived by it now. No more fear at the mailbox. No more whispered rumors. Just neighbors who knew the rules, and that the rules finally protected them. The HOA app pinged with a new notification. Next meeting agenda includes resident suggestions for relaxed flag policies. All voices welcome. I closed the app and looked at Ethan. Ready for round 2? He grinned. With you? Always. We stepped inside as the streetlights flickered on, perfectly compliant, perfectly timed, and for the first time, perfectly fair. The end of one era, the beginning of something better. And somewhere in the quiet suburban night, the ghost of a shattered champagne flute still echoed. A reminder that even the most powerful Karen can be brought down by a switched glass and a woman who simply refused to stay silent.